lights are out and you stumble in the dark. You kept pushing on, but then you went too far. When your ship has sailed and all your dreams are lost, everything is wrong, you feel like it's your fault. Just remember, I will be there for you, baby. Remember, there's nothing out there to get you, don't forget it. When life feels lemons, just call on me. Just call on me. Just call on me. You're stronger now than you ever been. You gotta leave now, it's time to catch the wind. You will climb up high and look through the clouds, and when you're feeling low, I know you'll bounce back. Oh, and just remember, I will be there for you, baby. Remember, there's nothing out there to get you, don't forget it. When life throws lemons, just call on me. Just call on me. Just call on me. Just call on me.
One chance remains. And this place is one which many people look at with a sense of Marmite. You either love this place or you hate this place. And for those who love it, it's a chance to really go out and express a track which has 3 different phases of abilities to go out there and make a truly good driving experience. For those who hate this place, this is a nightmare swarmed around with various elements of different circuits, which makes a nightmarish scene, not necessarily on Elm Street, but definitely in a position where tires get tortured and every single element of racing feels maybe a little bit more different to what it normally is. This is Circuit of the Americas for the eFormula Series, your final round of the championship, and it's a 3-way fight at the very top. 4 points splitting the top 3 drivers. Will it be Vasiliev? Will it be Guild? Or will it be Ilbrink? We will find out here today with ESBN. Welcome to the party. Welcome to the conversation that we are having on the fringes of practice here, deep in the heart of Austin, Texas. I'm Jake Sperry here, joined alongside by Frank Marchese to bring you all of the action. Frank, it's no secret that this championship has been topsy-turvy from the minute that we stepped foot on the opening round of the championship. We find ourselves at our finale, and it's a case of 3 very different cases. You've got the debutant playing the Jacques Villeneuve-style role in the likes of Pavel Vasiliev, who leads the championship going in. You've got the claim to fame, that rise, of course, of one Mr. Dave Guild, who has shown this season that he is well within the realms of possibilities of picking up results that are very much needed today. And then finally, you have Paul Ilbrink, the former champion of this series and someone who has just hit form at the right time.
Yeah, absolutely. Hit form at the right time, but we also saw he was well in form at the end of last season and then completely threw the race away in the first couple of corners back at Zandvoort last season. So while, yes, he does look to be very on form right now, he's won back-to-back races twice. He did that these last 2 weeks. Can he change his fortunes? He's the one that's the furthest back. Only 4 points separates the top 3 right now, but Ilbrink is the furthest back.
He is, but as we all know, it's 20 points for a race victory and 16 for second, so 4 points. They can go in a blink of an eye in this championship. And this is a championship that has 2 drop rounds as well. Let's not forget that. This is an important battleground that we are finding ourselves on, and there are battlegrounds all around this place, up and down the order, as everyone looks here, there, and everywhere for a strong result and a strong end to the season. And what a place to do it, like Circuits of the Americas, because this final stage of racing that we can get ourselves into as Dave Guild moves to 3rd in practice, this is a true test of man and machine. That first sector very much idled and inspired on Silverstone, where it's a very fast left and right, deals with all that dirty air effect. You need a great amount of aero dependency through that section. Then you've got the fast middle sector with the long straight where you can go and make that overtake. And then that final sector, very tight, very twisty, relying on the mechanical grip. 3 phases of a track to work with. This is quintessential Hermann Tilke.
Yeah, and it is. It's a very good combination of all of the things that you need to be successful in racing. You need to have the ability to have that car go at high speed. You need to have it work at the slow speed. You also need it to corner in medium speed. So yes, it is a very good racetrack for that. But a lot of people call it a nightmare because, again, it is very Hermann Tilke, to where it's long straightaway, heavy braking zone, tight twisty bits you can't really pass on. The track doesn't feel like it has a flow to it. So while there is good in it, there's also a lot of bad to this place.
There is a whole heap of ideals, I think is the right way to say it, as driver upon driver will be in full search of the right option as qualifying now gets itself started. 15 minutes to set a representative lap time, and well, no surprises, Vasiliev gets himself out on track first. Danny Herkstra in second, Paul Ilbrink third. We do need to talk about the team's championship. That is also up for grabs as well. Just 7 points coming into this one. Splits Atomic up from the Tulip Racing team. So that's going to be interesting to see how the other 2 members of those teams look to play their pivotal roles in this race, Frank. Those, of course, being Christoph Boozy for Atomic and Danny Hoekstra, of course, for Tulip.
Yeah, we saw Danny Hoekstra last week play a very pivotal role in kind of allowing Dave Guild to go by and just kind of get on with his race. And Atomic, with the better finishes that they had, were actually able to jump Tulip Racing as of last week in the points. So Atomic, who had been up at the top, Guild had his little surge mid-season that put Tulip to the top. Atomic now has finally made up that difference and has gotten up to the team championship lead. It's going to be a very, very good battle between the brand new team and the team that's been here from the start.
Absolutely, and this is going to be an important battleground, as we've said before. And now is the time for the team's championship that these drivers put themselves into play. It is pretty much a done deal, however, in your Privateers Championship. So for Ian Keeman, despite the non-finish last time out at Motegi, he does pick up the title and has every reason to be excited about said title going back to its rightful place, some would say, as it did a season ago. But now you start to wonder, that Privateer standing was very much a one-horse championship throughout the majority of this season. We had a couple drivers here and there. Closest challenger, Christophe Siard, has only had 2 starts this season. It tells you really just how much of a closed casket some would say this has been.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, Ian Keeman did not start the season off as a privateer. He started the season off with the White Devils team with Jan Stentenpool, and that kind of dissolved, and Keeman went back into the privateer. So that's also been, that's kind of put him up there as well. CR joined late. Rogenbuck has not had the best of finishes over the course of the season. Jean-Michael Gagnon, Bruno Canavas, Nathan Brumby, Steltenpool, and Cienko. We've seen them once, maybe twice, over the course of this season. So yeah, this Privateers Championship, if you have consistency, it's an easy take.
Certainly has been, but we are on our first flying laps at this point in time, and it's going to be worth keeping an eye out on the championship contenders here today. Ilbrink making his way into the very tough turn 12. On iRacing, it's classified as a 16-turn circuit, though the maps I read say this has 20 turns around it. So confusing much as they all look to try and work themselves into a stupor of a battle here today. Vasiliev up then near the top of the circuit actually outbrakes himself going into turn number 11. So that puts him in a little bit of trouble already on the opening lap. And then finally, of course, Dave Guild, who's making his way through the third sector right now, is searching for times. Ilbrink, though, will be the focus. One of the first drivers to lay down the gauntlet, and that gauntlet is only a 46.6 to get proceedings off and going.
It's a 46.6, and we saw one of the Atomic cars, it was Christoph Boozy, that was able to put a time down in the 145s at the very end of that practice session. So this track does have a lot of time in it. It's early in the morning here. It's only about 8:45 a.m. as it was a big twitch there by Ilbrink going into the S's. So this track does have a lot of time in it. It has a lot of pace yet to be found still.
Dave Guild goes second fastest on a 146.702. And some would say another man of the moment as Boozy just goes 300ths behind into second position. Now in fourth place, the 34 of Mark Ponick. Now, Ponick's got a lot of horses in this race as well, mind you, here, Frank, today, and could be a big thorn in the side of everybody in this championship hunt. Because remember, Mark Ponick here, as Ian Keeman goes fourth fastest, Mark Ponick is still fighting for that fourth place overall against Christoph Boozy.
Yeah, he was a big thorn in the side of both Atomic drivers 2 weeks ago at Twin Ring Motegi. Had a very good second place finish there, did the Canadian. And really, ever since that race in Austria has come on, it's been a completely different driver that we've seen piloting that number 34 since the Austrian Grand Prix, which he took victory in.
I certainly agree. I wonder if Mark has a twin somewhere that's been given access to the account. That might be something that could have happened, but obviously not. But for Mark Ponick, this has been a really a coming-of-age style season. The same way at the start of the season it was for Dave Guild. And You know, you can always look at a lot of these drivers hoping for good times, and especially for those looking to try and race potentially in the future. Brad McCombs in the number 23 machine, making his first start then in the eFormula series, coming from the Endurance for Amateurs League, which is also broadcast here at the Esports Broadcasting Network. And for McCombs, he has just not had the best moment. He's done a complete 360 through the triple right-hander as Guild goes fastest.
It was a nice little pirouette, though, for McCombs, and he is very, very good in those GT. It's a GTE and GT3 league for those of you who have never seen it. So it's multi-class GT racing on Wednesday nights at 8:25. One of the top drivers in that series on the GTE side. So you might see a little bit of a learning curve here tonight from the 23. It might take a minute, but this man can certainly wheel the car.
Pavel Vasiliev crosses the line, goes fourth fastest on a 46.8. Make that now fifth fastest because I Am Keeman leapfrogs up again. So Guild, Ilbrink, Boozy, Keeman, Vasiliev, the fastest times at the moment. But we've seen this a lot in qualifying. We see a couple sighter laps to get an understanding of the conditions, and then we see the drivers start to lay down those laps. And it's part of iRacing's dynamic track system as well, you could say here, Frank, that the track will rubber in. It will get quicker as more drivers run on it. 14 drivers here today. There is every opportunity that this track just gets into an optimum when you get to minute 14.
Yeah, and from the pole as Guild completely loses his lap behind a slower car going into what would be the final sector in Formula One. Here's Ilbrink crossing the line. But yes, this track, at least from the pole time now to what the final time in practice was, this track still, well, now it's only got a couple of tenths. I was going to say it has about a half a second still to find, but Ilbrink with his time right there has found a majority of it, can still find a little bit more, as Hoekstra, I believe, jumped up into P3 there as well.
So Danny Hoekstra gives the Tulip team second and third. Every reason to be excited at this point in time, doing a wonderful job at this stage, putting everything nicely together. For Paul Ilbrink, though, 0.4 of a second is exactly what he wants in qualifying, and he is continuing on, and is someone who has traditionally gone a different route when it has come down to what do you need, at what point do you need it, and at setup, we have seen he has gone for a more aggressive line, needing to gain the gaps early. So every little bit matters. The improvement for Keeman again, this time moving up into fourth position. Now, we were expecting Atomic to look really good. Right now, they are in fifth and sixth.
Yeah, but again, they both still have time. Boozy was able to go a second quicker than what he in practice than what he has shown now. Vasiliev about a second quicker as well. So those guys really not pushing this car early on in this session, as we see Boozy run wide. Vasiliev ran wide on his last lap in the final corner as well. Wasn't going to be a good time for him either way. Mark Ponick on a personal best in that number 34. Working the final sector right now is a personal best through sectors 1, 2, and 3. And from best assumption, this could sneak him up into the top 2 or 3 right here.
Definitely looks that way. Round the final corner goes Mark Ponick, drives to the line. It is a 46.757 only. Good enough to jump Vasiliev with that time, but no more than that. So good enough only for that sixth position at this point. Vasiliev now down in seventh, with it all to do today as the championship leader coming into this round. And this might just be a case of drivers thinking about each other, and this is what you get in a championship fight, as we have about 5 minutes remaining in qualifying. They can finish any lap that they start. It's a lot more simpler to race a championship fight when it's one-on-one, when you have multiple drivers to worry about. How does that mindset, Frank, change from, say, what is traditionally an easier and a more predictable battle?
Well, first of all, I must say I forgot to take into account that I'm horrible at math when it came to Ponick's time. Vasiliev right there lost it all in the final sector. He was going so good, set up fastest overall in the third sector that last lap, and then completely lost it in the final sector. But when it's one-on-one, you know who you're racing. You only have to keep tabs on one guy. When you're racing multiple guys, you have to keep tabs on several guys, and you have to out-strategy several guys instead of just one. So not only are you trying to mentally balance your own race and not try to throw your own race off, now you have to focus on not just one race, but two and then even three in this situation that all three of these guys, Ilbrink, Guild, and Vasiliev, find their way in. It's a delicate balance, but each one of these guys has to find it. The one who can find it quickest is going to be the one who comes away the champion.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. This is going to be a very important race, and they all have to be very much teetering around here today, and they will be dealing with a lot of things. And Frank, we talk about this place being a tough track. It's tough for a number of reasons. One of them is instant points. And remember, this series is a tough one for instant points. You get a drive-through penalty at 10 instant points, and then at 20, goodbye, you've lost your race. So ultimately, you don't want a drive-through penalty, but that is just the sort of fine line to expect from a series like this.
Yep, absolutely. As Vasiliev crosses the line, purple in the second and third sectors, and our championship three are 1, 2, and 3. About a tenth and a quarter rather, off of Paul Ilbrink on pole, but this is exactly what we wanted to see. We wanted to see the three up at the front, and that's exactly what we have.
Ilbrink is not going to have everything his own way today. This is a track which is known for having the ability to overtake. That long back stretch, which rides up and down like a roller coaster, is going to be one where we will be seeing the likes of 8 push-to-passes in this series come into play. That will be the opening of the drag reduction system on these Formula Renault 3.5s, and will definitely be interesting to see as and when they are used in a race like this. We got ourselves just 2.5 minutes left, and the key is not just who's going to be there inside of the top 2, top 3, but who's going to be populating that top 5, because as we know, that big fanning out at turn 1 could be so very, very detrimental to a couple of drivers' races.
It's uphill, it's incredibly wide, that turn 1, and it's almost blind, the apex is. So yes, there could be a couple of guys that decide to get a little cute going into turn 1 to try to maximize their positions gained at the earliest point in the race. So you're going to have to watch all throughout this race, especially going into turn 1. On that first lap, though, it could be chaotic.
34-lap race here today, 1 hour and 5 minutes on the clock, which means that there will be one mandatory pit stop in the offing. That will be for tyres and for fuel, potentially, as they get themselves ready to go again. And now the final drivers out there who could make an important difference. Haven't really talked about the lower half of qualifying here so far. There's a big 1.5 second gap between Mark Ponnick and Jeff Browning, which hosts the likes of Guadarrama, Leonardo Fabian, Christoph Siard, and Marcellus Bruning all there. So it seems like we'll be having 2 different races here today.
Yeah, absolutely. As Vasiliev crosses the line to start his flying lap, Ilbrink is about a little bit more than a half a lap ahead. Mark Ponnick, fastest of all in Sector 3. Christoph Siard right behind him. Personal best in Sectors 1, 2, and 3. Only 2 drivers have not taken time. Brad McCombs has not attempted to take time. Meanwhile, Alex Rogenbuck has had all 4 of his laps invalidated as Siard jumps up to 8th behind Ponnick in 7th.
I will note that McCombs is not in server right now, and the struggles that we saw with the spin, that probably didn't help things out there at this point in time. Question now is going to be, who is going to be the last driver over the line as Boozy moves up to 3rd fastest on a 46.260. Important time in the grand context of things. Dave Guild will be having Paul Ilbrink as a marker in front. That will be very crucial, but with 5 seconds to go, Guild will be the last driver to the line. Marcellus Bruning will be first over as the checkered flag comes out then at Circuit of the Americas, and Bruning spins it out to the final corner. That will be an invalidated lap. Rogenbuck will now have to tiptoe around the lap, but just behind him is Pavel Vasiliev, who now knows this is his final chance. to make his lap count as he goes under that all of the sponsors bridge there for the NASCAR Cup Series, which ran their Pro Invitational around this place just a month ago. As we head through the big left-hander at 19 to 20, Vasiliev can do no better than P2 on the lap. Ponick has been doing really well in Sector 3, but that final sector has been a whole heap of trouble and a bag of worms that he has been unable to shift off at this moment in time. Siard is up into 8th place on a 48-1 after those improvements we saw over that last lap. To the final corner goes Mark Ponick. He knows there is time available for him at this point in time, and as he crosses, he goes on to 4th fastest, a 46.437. Very much good enough. Siard could not improve. You got Guadarrama out there on a lap at the moment. He's currently in 10th position right now on a 48.5. He's going to dive down for the pits. I Am Keeman, though, in 7th, could rock the apple cart even further. We've seen he's been knocking on the door of lap time so far and will not do so there. Everybody done in qualifying, though. This is how the grid is going to stack up. It will be Paul Ilbrink for Radicals on pole position, with Pavel Vasiliev alongside the championship leader, with Christoph Boozy in 3rd and Mark Ponick in 4th position. Dave Guild has it all to do today. He lines up in 5th with Danny Herkstra, his teammate, in 6th. I Am Keeman in 7th and Christoph Siard in 8th place. Jeff Browning will line up 9th. 10th in the end will go to Esteban Guadarrama, with Leonardo Fabian in 11th and Marcellus Bruning in 12th. I doubt we were going to see Brad McCombs out there racing, but Alexander Rogenbuck will be out there in P13 overall. Track temp 19 degrees, only expected to get hotter as this race goes on. Frank, who's going to win the championship?
It's going to be a wild night. I mean, we know Ilbrink clearly has the best chance at it. Being starting up on the pole, Vasiliev has shown a lot of speed. Boozy has shown a lot of speed. Guild is way on the back foot right now, not just because of where he's starting the lowest of the three. He's also starting behind Vasiliev's Atomic Racing teammate in Christoph Boozy. That could be very, very crucial to this race and how the championship plays out.
And what's crucial as well is to note that it's 4 points between Ilbrink and Vasiliev. If it stays like this, with Ilbrink winning and Vasiliev in 2nd, Ilbrink will take the title on count back. He has 4 race wins so far this season to Pavel Vasiliev's 1. That is a huge marker. It means that if it stays 1-2, Ilbrink should be okay. And we will wait for Paul Ilbrink to get on the grid. He's got about 10 seconds here on the front. He has made everybody wait so far for him to be ready. And if he misses the start and goes from the pits, that will be a real shame. 3, 2, and he gets himself on the grid at just the right time. So now the lights will line up. This is the final race of the season. Circuit of the Americas. 3 drivers with a chance of a title. Green flag drops and we're underway. Ilbrink with a slow getaway. Vasiliev just breezes by him with consummate ease as they run towards turn number 1. Ponick's had a good start as well. They run through. Vasiliev has to leave the door open going through that section, and Boozy pushes Ponick out then over that AstroTurf. They're about 4 wide as they go behind and they've sorted themselves out, but Vasiliev has got the lead.
Yeah, Vasiliev came out of that first corner with the race lead, was able to get that run on Ilbrink going down the hill, and then the track fell in his favor for turn 2. So Vasiliev very fortunate, 1, that Ilbrink got the start that he got, and 2, that the track fell to him where it did.
And this is where Christoph Boozy needs to be in a really good position. There are team championship points as well. He is holding back both of the Tulip cars. Keeman sending deep contact, and it's Dave Guild who's been caught up in it. Yes. I Am Keeman outdoes himself. Guild is incensed on the radio, and his title challenge may just well be over.
Yep, and that was Keeman trying to make a dive on Mark Ponick for what was position 6, as now here comes Boozy on Ilbrink. This is massive for Pavel Vasiliev's championship hopes, and Boozy gonna make the position, so the Monaco native in 2nd position now.
Beautifully done. And there comes Ilbrink straight back down the inside.
Ooh.
Did not shut the door. And just like that, Ilbrink, who once again, I believe here, Frank, has gone for a higher downforce setup, has got himself the move at one of the more technical sections on the circuit.
Yeah, that's been his MO all season long. He has been more than willing to give up straightaway speed for cornering ability in that Radicals Online number 16. So really doesn't surprise me that he would do it here. It's worked out so well for him. Keeman in pit road now. Danny Hoekstra's also had a couple of offs here on this lap.
Yeah, we were just looking at that move, and literally just behind it, Danny Hoekstra had thrown himself into the wall coming out of turn 14. So that's why he's in a world of hurt. A disaster start to this final round of the championship for both Tulip cars. Danny Hoekstra lap 1, Dave Guild, not his fault. Doesn't look like there's damage to the car, crucially for Dave Guild, but a lot of work to do, and he's stuck behind Leonardo Fabian in the early stages of this race. It looks like, at least for the moment, it's a two-horse fight for the championship. Vasiliev versus Ilbrink. Whoever finishes first takes the title away.
Yeah, we just saw the replay there. Keeman outbraked himself big time, trying to get the move done on Mark Ponick. Couldn't quite get it. So we'll take a look and see what happened to Danny Hoekstra as he's already around here. As you had mentioned, just maybe caught that grass a little bit, put himself in the wall, and that was a big one for Hoekstra. You're right, the team championship implications are huge right now. Atomic just needs to finish where they are, and they've more than won it.
Absolutely, it would be at a canter if it stays as follows, but Ilbrink is hounding and harassing, and it won't matter if they take the team's title here. Pavel Vasiliev, at this point, he's got his eyes focused on one thing. That is the overall championship. The championship and race win would be so vital. And also, we know that this is not a foregone conclusion. Guild, once again, looking to be aggressive. He's on the outside into 19 against Leonardo Fabian. Not quite finding enough to make the move a reality just yet. But he's got a train of 3 coming up, gets a good run off for the exit of the final corner, and this is the chance that's needed. Fabian, I'm not sure he's going to put too much of a defence up here, because Dave Gill is going to move to the inside, effectively be a track general on that inside and confirm the move.
Yep, and just to look up at the top 3, Vasiliev able to do a 48.7 that last lap. Ilbrink 0.3 of a second quicker. Boozy 0.2 of a second quicker even than Ilbrink. So these top 3 are absolutely flying right now. Only 3 drivers in the 48-second bracket, and Boozy's almost to the 47s.
Oh, and it really does show how much they are having to push. Ilbrink is all over Pavel Vasiliev here on lap 3. Does he decide to take that decision to take the race lead back again? He's going to be at a disadvantage here on the straight, and Ilbrink knows that he is. He will have that toe that's helping. He's not using any of his push to pass, at least at this moment, but he's going to angle to that inside here at turn 12. But again, Vasiliev just not comfortable enough to shut the door on Paul Ilbrink, and this is allowing him opportunity.
And this we saw it already with the Keeman and Guild incident. These hairpins do come at rather awkward angles, so it looks rather close between these guys, and it can be very close between these guys going into those hairpins. The lines you have to take, they're not like, say, the line at Hockenheim. It is a little bit different, so if you do make a dive, it can come out to be a lot more dangerous looking than it normally would.
Certainly can do, but once again, it's a case of waiting as Guild now has the run on Esteban Guadarrama out to the final corner. It might be a case of it again, but side by side for the lead, almost we have it. Ilbrink nearly had the line against Vasiliev, who just pushed a little bit deep there into turn number 1. Missed the apex, but couldn't be capitalized on the exit. You've got to be careful about that. Stakes are raised so high that nerves and anticipation. Yes, this is a sim race, but still a really important one. Ilbrink here probably might have the advantage due to the fact he's been in title fights in this series before.
Yeah, the cars may not be real, but the emotions and pressure absolutely are. Once you get into that competitive nature of these races, it can certainly be very, very tense inside of the sim rig, as Vasiliev just trying to do whatever he can to hold on against Paul Ilbrink. These two are starting to pull away from Boozy and from Ponticus. Here we go. Here comes Ilbrink going into the heavy braking zone. Paul Ilbrink to the point.
To the point, and at the time, side by side for third. Little bit of contact between Ponic and Boozy as they go through, and Ponic...
Oh, around he goes!
Oh, no!
Contact between Boozy and Ponic, and that sends Ponic off. Still running in fourth position. Dave Guild now running behind, so Guild has recovered very nicely, but still big-time contact between Boozy and Ponic.
Christoph Boozy was a little late to the dance there, and you'd say for Mark Ponic, he didn't need to leave the door open at all. He left it about a half an inch ajar, and that was all it was going to take for Christoph Boozy to try and go through. He's muscled away through into third once again, with Dave Guild now in fifth position. They can't afford to be doing that too often here, especially between those two who are fighting, of course, for fourth place in the championship.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you saw both incidents there. You saw the little bump coming out of the hairpin that Ponic gave to Boozy. Boozy just tried to stick the nose in, and kind of both. It was Boozy was late, Ponic came across. So, I mean, maybe you call it a little bit more to the fault of Boozy, pardon me. But I think the bigger concern right now is that Ilbrink starting to get away from Vasiliev.
I just saw him going up the hill there. He had a little wiggle as he crested the rise, so you know he's pushing right now, and we know what happens when Ilbrink goes over 100%, and that we have seen, of course, at championship finales when Lubomir Moric took his maiden title last season. It has happened before, it can happen again, and Paul Ilbrink knows that form really dogged him in the early stages of the season. He did pick up 2 wins early, but the mid-season form again just fell completely by the wayside. He knows what he needs to do, and he's got to be absolutely on it once again. So we'll see how it works. We'll see if it's going to be a very good player or very much a play of, okay, we'll wait and see. A little bit of contact through at turn 11, though, almost. Christoph Siar and Esteban Guadarrama almost coming together in the fight for 7th and 8th.
A nice battle here in the midfield is Browning leading this group. Siard there as well. I'm sorry, that's Guild leading this group. Jeff Browning right there. Christoph Siard, we're seeing in the middle there in that number 81, that black and teal number 81. Nice little scrap here. Closest battles on track, as I believe Ponix had another moment. Oh, no, never mind. That was a couple laps ago.
Yep, so a couple laps ago, Mark Ponic ran into a couple of troubles. We did see that on screen, but now he's really dropped the pace off in comparison to Christoph Boozy at this moment. But you have to give some props right now to Paul Ilbrink here, who knows he needs to get a gap. And I tell you what, when you find an entire second on that last lap in comparison to Pavel Vasiliev, yeah, Paul Ilbrink's on one today, just like he was 2 weeks ago, just like he was 4 weeks ago.
Yeah, absolutely. Ilbrink certainly looking like the Paul Ilbrink that we expected, the Paul Ilbrink that we saw in Season 1, the champion Paul Ilbrink in Season 1. And you're right, he had that rough stretch in the middle of the season, had a rough stretch to start where he crashed out early at VIR. So, I mean, it's been a long road this year for Ilbrink. But again, 4 wins in 9 races thus far. He has certainly been the man to beat when he is on.
We've just had our first retirement. It's Marcellus Bruning. He has found out why the orange cones are not, the orange curbs are not to be messed with here at Circuit of the Americas. He clips one through the opening sector and he is out.
Yep, and we just saw that clip that curb big time going through the S's. And as we're seeing more and more on iRacing, I'm not sure if it has something to do with the updates or if it's the cars and track combination. Getting stuck in that wall, that was a big hit there for Bruning. And again, that seems to be happening quite a bit. You get these accidents, the guys getting stuck in the wall more often than not now.
Well, it is a Tech Pro barrier that he's running into at that point in time, which would naturally cushion the accident and push it back. So I suppose that would be part of the simulation that you'd see at that moment in time. But
looks awkward, though.
A little bit, but you know, sometimes you find yourself in a situation where you still need a little bit of time to make all of the moving parts work on a circuit with frame rate and all the other areas of what makes racing racing. Christophe Siard now has got Leonardo Fabian in sight after losing the place over the last lap. So Siard here moving a little bit backwards, seemingly at this point in time. Well, not necessarily backwards, but trying to find a way back through and up into the 8th place.
Yeah, he's down one spot from where he started, so he's trying to get that position back. Both Jeff Browning, Esteban Guadarrama, and Leonardo Fabian right in front of them. Those guys all +3, so those guys have been moving as here comes Siard going down just before the long straightaway. Very good move there from Siard, puts him back up into that 8th position.
For now, though, because ding bong, here comes the move on the inside. Fabian's going to get that one straight back again on the run to turn number 12. He's going to move in front. Siard's going to try and get into the mirrors and force a mistake. Fabian just runs a little bit deep through the corner, but it's enough to cover it off without the need of a slow down penalty or anything of the like. So Leonardo Fabian now keeps that place. Crucially, though, is holding up for Guadarrama, the teammate.
Yep, absolutely. And Guadarrama continuing to keep his focus on Jeff Browning in front of him. And Rebellion Racing Red, these guys have been towards the back of the point standing, the team standings this entire season. Just got out of the cellar last week, so this will be a good time to try to see if they could jump themselves maybe into 6th spot in the team championships come the end of today.
Definitely an option that they are looking at here. Just gain as much as they can in their respective fights up and down the order. Now, Mark Ponick here, that last time by, took another 0.4 of a second out of Christophe Bouzy. The gap comes down to 1.4 seconds as they now wrestle their way through the opening sector of the lap. Bouzy slightly missing the apex there through turn number 8, and that will cost a bit of time here to Ponick. And this is the key. This is a track where if you're not good in that first sector, then you're going to have to be defensive in that second sector. If you're great in the first sector, you don't have any worries on defense when you come down this long straight.
Yeah, and not only that, but if you're good in the first sector, you know, okay, maybe I'm going to give a little bit up here in the second sector. I'll have to defend, but I should be able to get it back in the third sector. So it's that balance. And again, we talked about that earlier with Ilbrink. He set the car up more for the slower to medium speed turns than the high speed straightaways. And you can see it's working for him now to the tune of a 3-second lead over Pavel Vasiliev. Maybe Vasiliev and Bouzy went for a little bit more of a top speed setup than a handling one.
Yeah, I think that definitely looks like it is the case at this point in time. So options are there. There has been a mistake, though, this lap for Dave Guild in the Tulip car as he has dropped 2 places for his troubles, all of which coming again with the orange curbs, a spin through the S's section. He's able to J-turn it around, crucially, and keep himself going again. But the key here for Dave Guild is that he is expending more effort, and I think he knows that he's in a losing race at this point. Yeah,
and I mean, it's unfortunate. That's where he got that one big time, too, and a big slide. I mean, I think Guild may have gotten out of his own head with that incident on the first lap of Keeman, just pushing a little too hard, especially knowing that the guys in front of him right now are running 1 and 2. It's unfortunate, but Guild certainly has been on the back foot from lap 1, and it's continuing that way.
Yeah, I certainly agree in this circumstance. This is the sort of track that you want to qualify yourself up near the front of to give yourself as much opportunity to not get into trouble. And that's what happens when you're P5 in a field of 14. You're on the fringes of the mid-pack. And just like that, there's the hit on lap 1. And, you know, it's a learning curve for Dave Guild. He's got the pace here to be championship quality material. We saw that early on in the season. We saw it, though, how in those races that he needed those results, like Austria really does spring to mind, you know, incidents on lap 1 have been common.
Yeah, absolutely. And we just saw Christophe Siard have an issue with the same curbs that have caught both Brunning and Guild. So now the 81 on the back foot now. But you're right, you're always going to rue those missed opportunities. And Guild has had a couple. Ilbrink's had a couple. Ilbrink actually got disqualified from that Austria race. So you can't dwell on what you may have missed out on. You just got to focus on the next week and making the best out of what you could make out of the next race, as we see Gil trying to make the best out of this, trying to get at Esteban Guadarrama for P6.
Yep, so Dave Guild looking to try and recover back through. Fortunately, didn't have any damage on the car as he moves to the inside, moving up in towards the opening corner, turn number 1. And it is comfortably done. Then the move is scored as complete. So that is certainly work on the horizon to be done. Dave Guild's teammate Danny Hoekstra currently in 10th position. That's soon to be 9th because the damage from Christoph Siard's front wing is a bit too much to drive with on lap 10. He's going to take the early stop. It's right within the pit window, just about. So this will be an alternative strategy line being taken then from one Mr. Christoph Siard.
Yeah, and this is about as painful as it could possibly be, not just for Guild, who's going to lose out on the championship in all expectations. Zilbrink had a little bit of a slide there, I assume?
No, he just completely missed his braking zone into 12, and the moment he missed it, he's given up a bit of time here to Vasiliev.
He's given up about a second looking at it and still closing. But going back to what I was saying, this Guild, in all reality, has lost the championship at this point unless something extravagant happens. Danny Hoekstra with his bad race also. It's not just on Guild today. It was on the entire team fighting for that team championship, just 7 points behind Atomic Racing in the team championship. Atomic's running 2 and 3 right now. That one's pretty much game, set, match as well.
Yeah, it certainly is. And that will be a shame for that Tulip team, who looked like they were very consistent for the majority of the season, but I think that most of their struggles this season so far here with that team's championship could have been very much remedied were it not for the fact that Danny Hoekstra's missed a couple races this season. You put that into the mix, of course, that the Atomic team wasn't as strong early on in the season. They had Max Shabley instead of Christoph Boozy. They've had ultimate opportunities to go and take that and make it happen, but a couple of missed chances here and there, and it's right in the hands of the two blue machines.
Yeah, absolutely. And you go looking through also, Radicals Online could have been a big part of the team championship. Manuel Domingo showed up for, I think it was 2 of the first 3 races, and then that's been it. And even still, Ilbrink has moved them up into 3rd position. They were looking to go 3 for 3 this season in the team championship. Haven't seen Raul Alvarez in quite some time, and he didn't have a teammate with him for most of the season. So there's another team that was out of the team championship. So it's really been between those two teams, and the more consistent of the two all season long, whether it's been consistently up at the front or consistently in the midfield, has been Atomic Racing.
We've missed a big moment for Mark Ponick through turn 19. Had a massive tank slapper, and that's moved him back into 5th position in this race. So Ponick getting caught out by the track. He's just moved back into 4th. He's fighting so hard right now with Jeff Browning and Dave Guild, and Browning has just got the move straight back on Mark Ponick here. And
has he though?
Go sending up the inside. Contact between both of them. Ponick immediately apologizes on the radio. Dave Guild is up to 4th.
Yeah, and that was about as perfect as it could have been for Guilds. We'll take a look and see what happened with Ponick. That was a huge moment in 19. Very lucky that he didn't go sliding all the way to that wall. And also to go back a little bit further, Ilbrink, with that big mistake, was still only 0.3 of a second slower on that lap than Vasiliev was. Regained, put down fastest lap of the race this time, though.
Yeah, the gap now up to 4.2 seconds here, and Paul Ilbrink is flexing at this moment in time, showing how much pace he has got, but he can't afford once again to run into troubles around this fantastic Circuit of the Americas track. This is one which you really don't want to be putting yourself into any form of trouble with, because you know that it can all fall apart so quickly. Just look at Gil, just look at Ponick.
Browning with a slide up at the top of the hill. Guadarrama runs off circuit to try to avoid running into him. And that was a big slide, a big moment, a nice save there for Browning, who just locked it down and was able to keep that car going straight.
I'll tell you what, you have to give credit to Esteban Guadarrama in that situation. Would have had no idea which way the car would brake, left or right. In the end, it stayed in the middle of the road. He had two options, and one of the options was lose all your speed and stay behind. The other one, which Guadarrama took, was escape to the grass, and he's done very well there to gain that place and keep the car on the road. So some great heads-up driving from the 24.
Yep, absolutely. That was beautiful and a snap decision that Guadarrama needed to make and made it perfectly.
Yeah, a perfect move at the perfect point in time when it comes to this race right now. Lonely race right now for Christoph Bouzy in third position. Is currently 10 seconds behind his teammate Vasiliev and 12 seconds ahead of Dave Guild. Effectively just marshalling off, hoping that nobody's going to come close anytime soon.
Yeah, and just set his personal best lap of the race at a 48.139 that last time around. That was 0.3 quicker than Pavel Vasiliev. So Vasiliev, if he wants to win this championship, he's got to start clicking off some lap times that are seriously competitive in order to get to Ilbrink. If the pressure's off Ilbrink, he's almost impossible to beat. He has to start really pushing to get up to that 16. Pardon me.
Absolutely. Remember, they still have to make a pit stop, and we haven't talked about pit lane, and it's an inauspicious pit entry that you find around this one, but it can catch drivers out because it's a very quick entry into it. You can get unsafe pit entries into that section of track, and of course there is the Armco or the pit wall there on the inside, which has caught out drivers before. So there are many ways where this can be a race that definitely doesn't help in terms of this one. Marcellus Brunning, by the way, back out and running again, is currently one lap down here in this race at the moment to Paul Ilbrink, who leads by about a stretch of turn 19 to turn 20.
Yeah, and we just saw off to the left there, we were riding on board with Paul Ilbrink. That pit lane entry reminds me very much of Laguna Seca, where it's a very fast pit road entry, and then it cuts down as Ilbrink slides off at the top of the hill in turn 1. This was the break that Vasiliev needed. Unfortunately, he's at the slowest part of the track, can't make too much time up on it. Ilbrink gets it straightened out, but that lead was just cut from about 5.5 seconds. He's now inside of a second.
That is what pressure does in a championship. Paul Ilbrink out and away. He threatened it a couple of laps earlier, going through turn number 1, just running down the hill, power ever so slightly too early, trying to fight the slip on the rears, and all of a sudden, Vasiliev has just been given new leases of life on lap 14 here in Austin, Texas. He is not fully within range, but what he will know is that Ilbrink's rear tyres are going to be a little bit heated up. This is a track that hurts rears more than fronts.
And it doesn't mean anything, though, unless Vasiliev can start to make up ground and try to make a move on Ilbrink. He's already lost about a half a second of what he gained on that mistake. And like I said, unfortunately, just the slowest part of the racetrack that he could have possibly made a mistake. So if it was any other part of the circuit, we'd have a new leader right now.
Yeah, that is very, very true. But Ilbrink now can chalk off another one of those 9 lives that we have seen over the course of this season. We have seen these mistakes from Ilbrink when he is pushing. Sometimes when he's not even pushing, we see those moments. And Ilbrink, once again, will have to come back into the bank because he would have cost himself an off-track incident point. It's into the pits, and out of the pits now comes Alexander Rogenbach in 12th place. He'll fall a lap down. But now, again, the pressure's there, and it's just been released as Vasiliev misses the apex through 1.
Yeah, and Vasiliev has already lost a second of all of that time that he gained back from that mistake. So Vasiliev just does not have the car under him today. Really gaining a lot, though, through this first sector. I'm just surprised that it almost didn't seem as though, unless he's really pushing and he's either sticking to his own strategy right now, or that incident did not inspire him to push a little bit harder, because Vasiliev he's lost it already.
I think Vasiliev is pushing, and that's the issue here. He's trying to give everything he can, but he's not got a car underneath him that's allowing him to challenge Paul Ilbrink for the race win here today. This is for the title as well. Whoever finishes ahead of the other will take it, because Ilbrink on count back, if it stays like this, will take the title by metric of most wins. It would be 5-1 by metric of race victory. So it's the case, really, of Paul Ilbrink doesn't need to do anything more. It doesn't matter if he's 1.6 seconds ahead, he's a million seconds ahead, or if he's 100th ahead. He's ahead, and he's got the title as things stand.
Yeah, I mean, this is the worst case scenario for Vasiliev, because even if they finish second and third, then it's Vasiliev's championship. But the fact that they are where they are right now, that's what's killing Vasiliev right now, is that gap. It's 4 points between the 11 and the 16 with the favor of the 11. And right now, you're right, it's a dead heat.
And let's not forget as well, despite that mistake from Pavel Vasiliev at turn 1, he still put in a time which was just 100th short of his fastest lap of the race, a 1:47.9. So Vasiliev is giving absolutely everything right now to Paul Ilbrink here, and I think he's got a car which is just starting to work. Let's not forget as well here, Frank, that this track temperature is rising as this race goes on. Track temp's now up to 22 degrees, and it is expected to go a little bit higher. A little bit of locking for Paul Ilbrink, who had another little moment coming up the hill.
Yeah, I was just going to say, that was we caught that just at the very bottom of the screen. Ilbrink had a very unique line going through there, and he's lost about another half a second. But going back to what you were saying about Vasiliev on his best time being just 100th of a second off, that's still a half a second slower than what Ilbrink ran just last lap.
But whatever that's doing, it's doing enough to show micro mistakes and weakness in Paul Ilbrink, the former Pro Stripe driver in the iRacing World Championship Grand Prix Series, someone who, by all intents and purposes, has the ability to go out there and race with intensity, has been doing so for many a year, is one of the veterans, you could say, of sim racing and professional sim racing out there. Before professional sim racing even became a reality to most drivers, he was a name that was up there and was always lauded in terms of the likes of, he was in the same crew as the Martin Cronques and Gregor Hutus. He was racing those sorts of drivers, the Alexei Usiakalas, Bono House, all the rest of those names that we take for granted now in the long, long reign of sim racing history.
Yeah, Vasiliev just put down his fastest lap of the race at a 47.86. So he is starting to put the pressure on. Dave Guild goes into the pit lane, so this could be the start of green flag pit stops here for these guys, as Rogan Buck is back in pit road again. Mark Bruning is in pit road with no rear wing, so he's had a major issue somewhere. But this could be the start of looking to the pit cycle to gain an advantage here for Vasiliev.
Oh, I've just caught Bruning's accident. It's right at the end of the S's. He's going through the big left-hander, and as he just tries to get it settled for the next corner, the back's just not come with him, and that's what's thrown Marcellus Bruning into the wall. Was trying to drive it back, but has taken a tow, and it's been a disappointing end, and Guild's had a spin. Dave Guild's had a spin coming out of the pits into turn number 1. So cold tyres then on a cold track have caught him out.
Cold tires, cold track in a zone, in a part of the racetrack where you have to be incredibly careful when getting on throttle. So yeah, as we're watching it right now, just try to carry a little bit too much speed through the corner and just a little bit of a drift. But other than that, nothing too dramatic for Guild.
Christophe Siard is out of the race. He's had another spin. He's been racking up instant points over and over again. And the privateer driver has been in a whole load of hurt. That will be his retirement then. Pretty much done at this point. Again, Vasiliev sets another fastest lap for his race. A 1:47.655. That time by lost only a tenth to Paul Ilbrink. He is very much now settled into that rhythm. I think the car is responding to these heating of the conditions another degree up on the circuit. I think Vasiliev is liking the fact that this circuit is getting a little bit tougher in terms of getting some turn in.
I think you're right. I think that was all he was waiting for, was just trying to stay as close as he possibly could until the track started to warm up, and then he knew he might have a little bit of an advantage on Ilbrink because his times have come down rapidly ever since the track started to gain temperature. We'll take a look at it. 23 degrees Celsius right now is the track temperature. So this is, if that is the case, it is falling into Vasilyev's hands.
And we just note as well, a couple more drivers come into the pits. Leonardo Fabian and Jeff Browning make their pit stops out then on circuit. So they've got work to be done as things go. Teams Championship all but wrapped up with a nice neat bow. We can engrave that, at least at this moment, on, with Herbstra still needing to make a mandatory pit stop. Dave Gildback in 9th position after making his necessary stops as well. But now it's about these two at the front, Ilbrink and Vasiliev. And now the question will be, who bites first and takes a dive into the pits? They're probably going to run as long as they can. Lap 22, by my count, probably might be one of the last laps they're thinking they can come in, which is in about 3 laps' time.
It has to be Vasiliev. We've seen in all forms of racing, not just in this series, but all forms of racing on this sim, the undercut is so valuable. And if you can make it work, that it's your biggest advantage. So if Vasiliev is thinking that Ilbrink is going to come in on 21, whether he wants to or not, he has to come in on 20 if he wants to make up this advantage, which once again is starting to fall away.
Yeah, and that's because Paul Ilbrink here is finding that pace and that rhythm again, which he can settle back into. It's the one worry that we've seen of him so far this season, is that Ilbrink can get unsettled, can run himself into troubles. Vasiliev has been very good at finishing races. That's why he only has 1 race win to his name this season, and that came all the way back at not the opening round of the championship, but the second round at Virginia. That's how long ago it was that since Vasiliev has picked up a race victory. He's been very good at picking up podiums this season. That's why he leads the championship. But for Paul Ilbrink, he knows he cannot afford a glass cannon style performance here today when the cannon breaks.
I mean, he has been very consistent, he being Vasiliev. He's been very consistent this year, which has gotten him to the point, but he has to seal the deal. And that's exactly what Paul Ilbrink has been able to do this season. He has been able to seal the deal on nearly 50% of the occasions. It would be 50% if he took the win here today. So it's, yes, being as consistent as possible is definitely going to get you here, but you have to be a champion. You have to race as a championship contender, and a 1 second deficit that lap. Vasiliev slower than Ilbrink, but Ilbrink makes another mistake at the top of turn 1. This one not nearly as consequential.
Not nearly as much, but again, the backs are stepping out on Paul Ilbrink's car. It's the 3rd time we've seen it happen today, and he's had that spin almost as well. So Ilbrink is really pushing, and again he is showing those little stages of weakness, which are indicative signs that he could be in for a spin at some point in this race. He can't keep chancing his arm like this. He's got to dial it back.
Yeah, but even then, Vasiliev's still losing time. He had gotten to, before that mistake, it was a 2.1 second gap. After the mistake, 1.7. It's now up to 2.3 seconds, the gap between Ilbrink and Vasiliev. So even with the mistakes, it doesn't seem to be phasing Ilbrink because he knows Vasiliev just cannot counter on him.
Well, he can't counter, yes, but you know, you can't keep doing this in the stage, Frank, where you're seeing the likes of Paul Ilbrink out there on circuit making mistakes. At what point does the car just completely snap on you and the race is over and the title's over? We saw that happen last season. It's
going to be right around now, because this is the point of the race where tires are starting to get worn. You're right on the cusp of a pit stop. So if it's going to happen, it's going to happen now.
Definitely looks like it. Ilbrink stays out then for a 21st lap around this place. Vasiliev is going to follow in tow. And 1 lap down now is Jeff Browning, who has had himself a not too brilliant time of things at this moment in time. I believe he's just come out from his second pit stop, which would indicate that 10 instant points have been hit. We don't have that information available, mainly because we are not admins here in this league. We would be able to see so otherwise, but there are other battles out there to be had overall. I Am Keeman's due one more stop. He's currently down in 8th position right now. He's really not had the same pace as Danny Herkstra, who pitted at very similar times from very similar positions here, Frank, but the difference now is 15 seconds between them.
Yeah, and Hoekstra needs to pit as well. They both came in at the end of the first lap. Div Keeman and Hoekstra, and Hoekstra, has had a lot better of a car than I Am Keeman has. Keeman's had the better lap overall between the two, as Keeman actually is going to come into pit road now. So Keeman's going to try to gain a little bit of time back with an early pit stop, but Hoekstra still needs to make his.
Yep, certainly does. Danny Herkstra currently in 6th position right now on the road, but once again, we have to say, is still due that final pit stop here at Circuit of the Americas. If you are just tuning in, it's been an eventful race so far. A lap 1 incident between I Am Keeman and Dave Guild meant that Dave Guild's championship challenge pretty much ended just as swiftly as it began. It's been a race between Ilbrink and Vasiliev, with Vasiliev ultimately not having as much pace. He has a big moment through turn number 19, but Paul Ilbrink has been the one making more of the mistakes out there on circuit, despite the incredible turn of pace that he has in this race. The gap now up to 3.3 seconds for the Radicals Online Dutchman, and this could be a case of just keep it together and it's all yours. He can dial it back to, mid to late 47s and still be in a commanding position.
Yeah, I mean, Vasiliev's best lap is a 47.66, and he's only hit that about once or twice. So I don't know if he was on the push to pass or the DRS in those laps, but he has not been able to get out of the 48s. Esteban Guadarrama pitting in from the 5th position, Danny Hoekstra pitting in from 6th. So those guys are starting to come in. I would have to assume Vasiliev is going to come in either this time or next.
It was very interesting watching the two different pit entries there. At least a 1.5 seconds plus gained on Guadarrama, who was already on the pit limiter a good 200 meters before the yellow cone.
Yeah, that's not practicing the pit entry. That's not knowing where your pit entry is. For Guadarrama, Hoekstra knowing exactly where it is, knowing where he needed to brake, knowing where he needed to be on the limiter. That's just better track knowledge.
Absolutely. It's one of the 3 fundamentals of racing. You practice your fastest laps, you practice your race laps, and you practice your pit entry, the 3 phases of the game that all need to be done in absolute harmony to make sure that this race works out. Into the pits then comes Paul Ilbrink from the race lead. Vasiliev is going to follow suit.
That was not what Vasiliev needed. He needed to pit before Paul Ilbrink if he wanted to try to make up what was now a 4-second gap. That gap has opened up. It was about 5 seconds on pit entry. You see Christoph Boozy in pit road as well, so the top 3 are in. Would have to expect Mark Ponick is not that far away from a pit stop either, but that was the last thing Vasiliev needed to see, as Vasiliev hasn't even gotten to his box yet before Ilbrink is down and away.
Looked like there was something wrong there for Pavel Vasiliev as he went through. It's almost as if, as I'm looking from him right now, that he doesn't have mapped his pit limiter. He's trying to manually go down the pit. He's okay, but he had to brake check a couple times not to get a speeding in pit lane, because it's done on an average speed gradient. He was all the way down at 20 kilometers an hour down in the pit, and that has just completely blown the gasket wide open. Ilbrink has just got to bring the car home. That gap of 2 seconds is now 10.
Absolutely. Is Ilbrink total time in pit lane 37.2. Vasiliev 41.6. That's all you need to know. Vasiliev's actual pit stop time was about a 0.5 second quicker than Ilbrink's, but that 4-second gap from cone to cone, that's the telltale marker right there.
It's just completely let all of the gasket go. And now Paul Ilbrink knows that to win this championship, he's just got to drive around 12 laps. It will be 11 when he crosses the line. Just 11 laps of time trial, essentially. Don't throw the car in the wall around Circuit of the Americas. And whatever you do if you're Paul Ilbrink, because we have seen a lot of those slides, potential 2Xs could have been coming in for loss of control. He's got to watch his incident point marker on top of all of this. So stay within the lines is another must for the Dutchman.
Yep, stay within the lines. Try to keep that car under you, because loss of car control is 2x. You only get 5 of those over the course of a race before you come to a penalty. I really wish. Now, I thought we would have had the off-track count, but it wasn't accurate, which is why we quickly changed off of that on the broadcast. So I wish we had that so we knew where these guys were right now.
I wholeheartedly agree, and that might be something we look at towards the end of the next seasons that come along with us here at ESBN. It's currently Paul Ilbrink in the lead, Pavel Vasiliev second, and Christoph Buzy in third position. So Atomic 2 and 3, that will get them the Constructors' title, or the Team's Championship, so to speak. Mark Ponick has leapfrogged in the pit stop. Dave Guild has moved up into fourth position. That's not a surprise. The difference, though, is it's about 4 seconds here. So Ponick knows if he stays as is right now, he will maintain fourth position in the championship. Crucial for him on what has been a fantastic season for the 34.
Yeah, absolutely. Christoph Buzy still hovering around in that third position there. As you see those numbers there on the overlay, that is the amount of time that the drivers spent stopped in their pit box on their pit stops there. So Ponick came in with about a 32-second advantage over Dave Guild and has come out about 3 seconds ahead. So that's a solid gap for Ponick. And we know after what we saw at Motegi last week, 2 weeks ago rather, that he could certainly defend.
He can defend. He's a very good defender of positions, is Mark Ponick at this stage. And we know that this is going to be a long road to defend to make sure that this race all ends up exactly where it is needed at this point. So don't count your chickens just yet. Fourth place still not quite guaranteed. Interesting as well that Danny Herkstra, after his pit stop, remains in sixth position. He's done a great job to keep himself nicely up there, and a great recovery after throwing it in the wall on lap 1.
Yeah, he has been very, very solid after his lap 1 mistakes, trying as he might to make it close. But again, with Atomic running 2 and 3 and Tulip Racing running 5 and 6, that is still game, set, match.
Still is game, set, and match, but it's not been for a lack of trying, you would say, in this race so far. They have done a wonderful job to get themselves back into an acceptable position, is the right way to say it. And finally, a confirmed retirement then for Marcellus Bruning. He's had a long, long race here today. He's been in the wall multiple times. Finally, I think it's bitten the dust, and Bruning now officially out of this race.
Yeah, and this is at the top of the hill, right at the end of the first sector on the Formula One circuit, and see a big spin off the track into the Armco barrier. He's going to try to come down the hill here and just say, you know what, no, we're done. And that unfortunately is the end of Bruning's day.
Good battle going on for 8th position as I Am Keeman now looks to try and recover through the field. He's got the Privateers standings locked up in the back pocket, but he would like to try and get back to about net even for his race. First up, Leonardo Fabian. The gap as they crossed the line was 2 seconds. Looks a little less than 2 seconds right now.
Yeah, absolutely is. Keeman really starting to...
Another moment at turn 1 where the back steps out on the power.
And I'm not sure why he's pressuring as much as he is, because he ran a 48.8 that last time by. Vasiliev caught up by 0.3 of a second. It's Vasiliev. He's doing it to himself now because Ilbrink can run 48 flats, 48 twos, and still pull away from Vasiliev. So I'm not sure why he's feeling the need to really push this car right now.
It might even be the other way right now, Frank. The fact that he's not pushing the car and he just had a mental lapse in concentration.
I mean, that could be it as well. But even then, I mean, it's still a little iffy, and it's the same corner as well. So I'm surprised. I really am that Ilbrink is having this much trouble under so little pressure.
I'm also a little bit perturbed by the situation that Ilbrink finds himself in at this point in time. Speaking of drivers finding time, I just took a look at Dave Guild's last lap. He just took out 0.8 of a second on Mark Ponnick. So that one in the next couple of laps looks like it's going to heat up in a fight for fourth, as Keeman has now once again found the back of Leonardo Fabian.
Only driver in the 47-second bracket that last lap was Dave Guild. Everybody else was a 48.09, which is what Danny Hoekstra ran, or slower. So Guild right now with the fastest car on the racetrack as of last lap, and might just as well be this lap as well, because he's flying on this one too.
Keeman's out. I am Keeman out of the race. And ultimately, I did not quite see where it went, but I think
doesn't
that
show an incident
is for
either.
20 incident points.
That's not good. If that's I mean, and most of that would be track limits, because we've only seen him in genuine trouble over the course. Oh, watch out, Rogenbach. When Rogenbach hopped over one of those curbs right in front of Paul Ilbrink, and Ilbrink really had to back off. But, I mean, it would have had to have been incident points, because we haven't seen him being Keeman in big trouble since the opening lap.
Oh, I certainly agree, and he would have been pushing hard to keep himself into play, and that would also explain the fact that I Am Keeman is 30 seconds behind Danny Hoekstra on the road when they are very similar in terms of pace. So a real shame, but a disqualification, so to speak, means 0 points, and there's not much you can argue around that one. Vasiliev, though, will be a little bit happy that Rogenbach has had a little issue there over the curbs, because, again, that's more time saved that he can just slowly reel back in if Ilbrink was to have another mistake. We are in the mids and the thrall, so to speak, right now here, Frank, of lapped Trafficsville, even though we are on lap 28 coming up to of 34.
It's not necessarily that they're catching lap traffic, it's where they're catching lap traffic, and Ilbrink caught Rogenbach in a little bit of an awkward spot. Vasiliev, I think, is going to be a lot more fortunate to where he catches Rogenbach here on the main straight, and Rogenbach is just going to pull off and let him go. So, but again, even still, though, Ilbrink, they ran almost identical lap times that last lap. Ilbrink a 48.58 to Vasiliev's 48.56. So, I mean, in a situation where he could have gained a lot of time, just didn't.
Sometimes that's the way it goes, and if you gain, you gain. If you don't gain...
Boozy's been around. Boozy's around at the top of the hill, turn one.
Oh, and just like that, from third position, just quietly running his own race. He's got 15 seconds in the bank. There will go about 5 of them there. Boozy just trying to get the power on early after the slide. Just the back just did not want to play ball, and that'll be a wake-up call, especially when you've got Guild and Ponnick, arguably some of the fastest drivers on the track.
He clipped that inside. He clipped that little sausage curb on the inside and slid it, let off the gas, let off the brake before the slide was done, and then completely put it around there. That was what happened with Boozy. Still 11 seconds, though, back to his closest competitor, and that's the good and bad of being in a little bit of a pocket the way Boozy is. One, you're not really racing anyone, so this race can get very boring. But if you make a mistake, you still have a little bit of time to hang out.
Yeah, you still have that time, and that's crucial for Christoph Boozy. Can't afford to throw away too much more in terms of this race. He's got third place under lock and key, and he just doesn't want to give the key now to the jailer, so to speak. And that would be the last thing that he would definitely want in a race like this. We now find ourselves on lap 29, 6 laps to go here at the Circuit of the Americas, in a race that has been fraught with dangers up and down the field. And still, we do have enticing battles towards the end. Most crucially, Dave Guild and Mark Ponick. Ponick here is just doing enough to hold off Dave Guild at about a second.
Yep, he is. And he's picked up his pace, has Ponick a little bit, but he's still slower than Dave Guild. Guild just outside of the 47s now, but still quicker than that 34. Ponick has been riding, so he still does have a little bit left in reserve, but it's getting to the point where he's got to use it now.
Yeah, it's the final stage of the race. You've got nothing left to really put down on the table. You've got to make sure that you're not bringing drivers behind into a range. And for Mark Ponick and that 4th place in the championship, he knows that 4th and 5th will do it either way, but he'll definitely want to finish off the season on a higher. Driver who maybe next season might be in line for a championship challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. With the way he's finished this season off, he could end up in a Vasiliev role. He does have a win to his credit this season. He's done, and you can see the defensive work he's already putting on Dave Guild right now. He's shown the consistency. He's been on or around the podium ever since his win in Austria. So, Captain Consistency, it's been Vasiliev this year, but Ponick has done a great job in the second half of the season.
Certainly has done, but now he's got to prove it for one final time, because there is Dave Guild, and he is now all over the back, swarming behind Mark Ponick in the 34. And now we're in for a real race as we go through the big triple right-hander. Circa, I would say, a mirrored version of Istanbul's big corner. And Dave Guild finds out why dirty air is such a horrible thing to deal with in a race.
Yeah, we were riding on board with him there. Just went into turn 19 way too hard and slid out wide. Fortunately for him, nothing much doing there as far as like grass or gravel that could have really sent him off. The big moment there for Guild, and that's going to delay his attempted pass a couple of laps. We only have 5 left on the season.
Yeah, so that pass ultimately is not going to happen on this lap, you would feel. But there is still time to catch back up once again, and Dave Guild hasn't lost too much time with that mistake, and that will be a crucial point of fact as they go through. I do want to point out that we are down to just 10 runners now in this field with the retirements of Kieman, Bruning and Siard. Alexander Rogenbach has just gone for a slide. He is one of them who is down in 10th position. He's just had a moment right in front of Mark Ponick, actually, and that'll be a little bit of draft, which Mark will very much be grateful for on the run down the straight. But really, at this point of contention, you've got likes of Jeff Browning a lap down, Leonardo Fabian and Esteban Guadarrama bring themselves to their respective finishes. It is pretty quiet around this circuit in terms of a battling perspective.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, not many cars left in this race, and it's an absolutely massive track. So, yeah, a lot of guys are going to find themselves in that situation of being alone. Ilbrink continues to work his way up and further away from Vasiliev. Last time through, a 47.59 for Paul Ilbrink. Compare that to a 48.26 for Pavel Vasiliev. This race, again, unless something extraordinary happens, it's looking championship 16.
It is looking that way for the 16 machine of Paul Ilbrink. Of course, the first championship since the inaugural where the champion wasn't necessarily decided outright, in the sense that in the first championship there was no champion as of yet. And here in championship number 3, no Lubomir Moric taking his well-earned hiatus from sim racing. So for Paul Ilbrink, knew that he had a lot of work to do over the course of this season and knew that it wasn't going to be all his way. Had to fight hard after dealing with a few gremlins at the back end of the last season. And they really do spring to mind, Frank. What happened at Long Beach was really the catalyst to what happened at Zandvoort. And it was those 2 rounds which really, I think, took a dent on Paul Ilbrink's confidence, and he had to approach this season a little differently, especially after they came back in the middle of the season, especially when you bring up the likes of what happened at Phillip Island.
Yeah, and didn't have a great run at the season opener at Road America. crashed out at VIR, so his bad end to the season 2 carried into the start of season 3. He then turned it right back on, got a couple of wins, and then you're right, what happened at Phillip Island, there was also him getting disqualified for hitting the incident limit at Austria at the Red Bull Ring. So he really has had the tale of 2 seasons this year.
It has been a tale of 2 seasons, but it's still not an over season at this point in time. We are still not there yet. Got 3 laps yet to figure out where everyone needs to be. And now Mark Ponick looked behind because 4th place is not secure, and he moves way over to the pit wall.
And that comment was Ilbrink just at the fastest lap of the race at a 46.67 that last time by. So he is still flying. 11.5 seconds the gap. Vasiliev was only able to respond with a 48.2.
Has anyone told Paul Ilbrink he's not going to get an extra championship point for fastest lap?
I don't think he's going to need it, honestly.
No, he's there on countback at this moment in time. Here is the 3rd pretender to the championship, someone who was pretty much out of it early, going on through, Dave Guild. And this will be a learning experience out of the title fight before it really got itself going. And for someone like Dave Guild, just needs to come back to the table with a couple tenths of a second, because he had a really good early stage of form, just couldn't quite get the gears turning through the final stages of the season.
Yeah, and for today's race at least, if you want to talk about an unfortunate victim, that's exactly what Dave Guild was. He wasn't even in the battle with Keeman and with Mark Ponick. He was in front of him, and unfortunately Keeman drove way deep into, what is that up at the top? I believe it's turn 8 up at the top of the track, and just blew right through Dave Guild, and then he's had to battle back from there. Sure, he's made a little bit of mistakes, but it does not compare to what he has done over that first lap incident.
No, I certainly agree. And you look at this on paper here, Frank, the top 6 remain unchanged in their position. That really doesn't tell the story of the race today.
No, it's been all over the place. It's been topsy-turvy. Boozy and Ponick, those two were battling for quite a bit at the beginning until Ponick sort of elbowed Boozy out, and then Boozy completely wiped Ponick out. Vasiliev had the lead for a couple laps there at the beginning. Guild has shown a car faster than what his position would handle. And also Danny Hoekster's been as low as stone dead last here in this race. He's fought his way back up to 6th. So it looks like a dull race when you see the positions gained, but it's been very far from that.
Certainly has been. Dave Guild all over the back of Mark Ponick, though. The battle for 4th position is not over and done with yet. With a lap and a half for these drives to figure it out. Top of the hill, turn 11, and it's a descent down from here as they now look to try and get as much as they can out of this run. Ponick switching back to the racing line now as they make that run, making a very deliberate jink and turn of phrase as he goes towards his next left-hander at 12. And again, this is where Dave Guild needs that mechanical grip to come into play. We've seen a bit of contact with Mark Ponick through this section already in this race. Could we about to see the one big move coming in? Dave Guild, he's looking really threatening here.
Yeah, it certainly is, and but it's great to see, though, because Vasiliev and Boozy were looking incredibly threatening on Ponick 2 weeks ago at Twin Ring, and Ponick just did not give in at any point, and he's doing the same right here. He might have no choice going into turn 1 this time, though.
The closest he's been, and it's the last lap that they are on for the season. So here comes the charge from Dave Guild. Wants the move on Mark Ponick for 4th position. Browning is going to come out for the pits just behind him. Guild's going to take that uber wide line to try and attack down the hill as much as he possibly can here. And through this long right, he'll be suffering with the dirty air effect. And through the S's section, he's going to be all over the back of this one. Has had a chance to fight for the championship, but ultimately taken away. But there is all of the issues that we have seen out there on track. Another spin we've just heard there in the back has certainly not been very ideal in terms of scenarios. But through the final sector will come Paul Ilbrink. He knows what he needed to do today. He needed to get a victory and hope results everywhere else would go his way. It seemingly has done at this point in time. A lot of doubts were thrown after last season in Zandvoort and how heavily he capitulated against Lubomir Moric. But it will be tallying back the wins that he will take this championship on. Paul Ilbrink will drive to the line and wins the championship in the eFormula Series season number 3. Brilliant racing throughout we have seen. Vasiliev has come to the line in second position. It was a great debut season for him, but just one small point has ultimately cost him everything by this one. Boozy makes sure it's wrapped up for the team's championship. That is in the pocket of Atomic, and Mark Ponick will hold on for 4th place in the championship with his sterling efforts defense against Dave Guild.
It's been an unbelievable race to watch with these guys as Ponick once again puts on the defense of a lifetime against Dave Guild, who I'm sure will be a little bit more than sore after what happened on lap 1. Here comes Danny Hoekstra, not only losing out in the championship, but losing out in the team championship as well. Here's Hoekstra to round it out for Tulip Racing. It's a Atomic 2-3, a Tulip Racing 5-6. Esteban Guadarrama still about 22 seconds adrift from finishing this race. Leonardo Fabian a further 14. So with the race pretty much well and truly over, congratulations to Season 3 champion Paul Ilbrink.
His second championship in eFormula, and that will be a really important one just to settle back in, will be the driver to beat the Season 4 here of the eFormula Series. But let's get confirmation of result then here from Circuit of the Americas. Paul Ilbrink, 1 hour, 1 minute, 38 seconds, gets the victory done and wins by a large margin, which could have been so much more were it not for 3 or 4 big mistakes from Ilbrink here today. Wins by 14.4 over Pavel Vasiliev, with Christoph Boozy making sure that the team's championship ends up in the back pocket of Atomic. Mark Ponick will finish in 4th place, just ahead of Dave Guild in 5th, and Danny Hoekstra 6th. The top 6 all finishing where their grid positions were at the beginning, but that didn't tell the tale of the tape, with Esteban Guadarrama in 7th and Leonardo Fabian in 8th. They were the last finishers on the lead lap. Finishing but laps down were Jeff Browning and Alexander Rogenbach, 9th and 10th respectively, with I.M. Keenan, Marcellus Bruning and Christoph Siard all retirements. Brad McCombs deciding that this was not going to be a race that he was able to, with confidence, race with clarity out there overall. But Frank, this goes down as a very important season, probably the most volatile and unpredictable season we have had in the eFormula Series.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was such a good race and such a good finish to the season. And I mean, ready to go for season 4 already. Not only that, but on the off weeks for the 3.5 series, we're adding to it a Formula 3 series with this league. So there's going to be a lot more coming from the eFormula guys as the next season, I believe, will start in the middle of September, right after the season 4 update comes out.
Fantastic. So they've got a few weeks to chill and calm down, but one thing we can do is if I don't have permissions to move people in the certain channels, hopefully we can get a chance to talk to Paul Ilbrink in the not too distant future. But well, opportunity knocks and opportunity shall be received.
Or wait a minute, actually I do not.
I
thought I did.
Well, we both don't have the permission to get drivers in for interviews, so this is going to be a little bit awkward at this point in time. I think we're going to have a little bit of a chat with some of the admins here in our TeamSpeak server that we find ourselves in. But at least for the moment, what we can say, Frank, is that what a great season it's been. We've seen new drivers come up to the forefront. We saw established names maybe keep themselves in and around the some drivers who aren't here, for example, like Javier Alvarez, for example, definitely showed that they could still go and make things happen. But the question now is, what for the next season? Who would feel more comfortable after this season moving over towards the next?
I think you just look at the guys that finished really in the top 6 here tonight. Those are the guys that I would have to say are going to be the most competent guys going into next season. Ilbrink, we know his competency. Vasiliev, I have a feeling, is going to be a little bit more aggressive next year. Boozy, having the consistency that he had this year, he could certainly be in if he can make all of the races. Mark Ponick with the consistency that he showed and the complete turn of pace that he showed in the second half of this season, he's going to be a contender next year. Dave Guild, we saw that he was the points leader right up until going into this race. And Danny Hoekstra, who had missed a couple races at the start of the season, that really set him back in the points. We know Hoekstra can be there. And who knows? Who knows some of the new names that could be coming into this series that could put on a challenge. Vasiliev, this was his debut season. He's going to finish second in points, tied in the points lead with the two-time champion.
Yeah, definitely is a great foundation to build on, of course, for the next season. But I think with a inability to do too much resolving here in terms of our end on getting some people to move into exactly where is needed, I think this is where we're going to call.
I mean, we could move to them. That is an option as well.
That is an option. It's a very grand option, but I believe that's the only one that we have left. So on your cue,
I'm ready to go when you are.
Well, let's go to Paul Ilbrink then, as we find ourselves a victory in 3.
User left your channel. Channel switched.
Well, we're going to do this a different way. Paul Ilbrink here, along with us here at ESPN. Paul, we've come to your garage, so to speak, at Radicals Online. You had yourself the championship. You've won it on countback. How are you feeling after what was, I would say, a very nervy race after a few issues out there on track?
Yeah, quite satisfied, I guess. I didn't really do any calculations up front. I just did whatever I could to score the most points, which is just winning the race, which in the end I did. But yeah, I don't know. It was a good race, but and I had the pace, but the car was like quite tricky out of some corners, and at some points I was like pushing a bit too much for lap time, and then I like nearly killed the car by putting it in the grass and almost in the wall. But yeah, pretty comfortable. And then with the pit stop, I don't know, maybe Pavel didn't like practice it or something, but I gained like 6 seconds, I think, with that. So after that, it was like just doing my laps and trying to stay within the limits of the track, because it was like close on getting a penalty. And yeah, just bring it home from there.
Bring it home you did. Let's talk about your season, because it was one of incredible highs and incredible lows. 5 victories over the course of this season, but a number of non-finishes as well to go with that. How are you looking to take these next 3 or 4 weeks or so in terms of leveling out some of the consistency needed over the course of the season?
I think it provided a pretty good championship driving the way I did, so I don't plan on like improving that, and hopefully keep things exciting for next round.
Well, exciting you are. You do have yourself a championship now in your back pocket. So just like season 1, how are you planning to celebrate?
I don't know, just hang out with my team and yeah, have a bit of fun with them.
As all good teams should do, they should all have a little bit of fun. Before we let you go, Paul, shout out sponsors, anyone you'd like to thank. It's your 2nd title here in eFormula.
Just all my teammates at Radicals Online and the partners and sponsors, Granfield Simulation, Arma Syndrome, Track Racer, Joe Real Timing, MOETF Podcasts, Turn Racing, Pixel Dust, and Six Sideways. Danny and the guys for putting up this championship and organizing it. You guys for doing a nice job on the broadcasts, and everybody else for watching this.
No worries at all then. Paul Ilbrink, a 2nd title here in eFormula. Frank, I believe you've found the Atomic Garage and Pavel Vasiliev.
Yeah, we'll both jump up there since they're both in here. Hopefully we're not breaking up a
Channel
conversation.
switched. User joined your channel.
Here, Pavel, a an interesting race for you. You were able to catch up a little bit with Ilbrink. You had a great start as compared to him. A little bit of just a slower first stint, and then just what happened on that pit stop.
Uh, can you guys hear me okay?
Yep, we got you.
Yeah, so had a good start. First stint was all right, but I think ultimately Paul had a bit of a better pace, which I wasn't too surprised about. It's a difficult track. Pit stop wise, I came in too late, ran out of fuel, and because of that, I couldn't see if my pit limiter was on or off, and it was just shambles all across the pit lane. But I'm happy I got away with it. Happy I didn't get a penalty, and yeah, got it to the finish line.
Yeah, you certainly did, and just I mean, it's such a tricky racetrack here. How did you have the car set up, and why did it appear as though that some of the speed that the car had in the practice session just didn't translate over?
It was a challenge, to be honest. I changed the setup completely and went a totally different direction with it probably a few hours before the race. So I had to practice quite a lot today in the morning. I practiced all week with the setup that I normally use, but then it just didn't seem to have the ultimate pace, and I was quite a bit slower than Christoph. So then, yeah, we had to sit down together and change the direction. I think ultimately it's just a difficult track to stay consistent. The track temps play a big role in how the car handles. So, you know, the way you start the race is not how it drives throughout. So it's just very difficult. I think we just need more experience, to be honest, to maintain better pace throughout.
Well, it may not have been a championship victory for you here in your debut season, but in the debut season for the team, it was definitely a team's championship with you and Christoph coming home in second and third here tonight. Just a great overall team effort from you guys all season long.
Yeah, absolutely. We're really happy. We work together with Christoph a lot. We're definitely gonna be happy to take some time off now and just relax. But yeah, really happy to come in and take the win for the team. It was a great rivalry with Tulip Racing, and yeah, it's just very satisfying to get that top spot.
All right. Anything you want to, anyone you want to give a
User
shout out
joined your
to
channel.
close out this season?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks to you guys. First of all, great broadcast. It's really entertaining to watch it back all the time. League organizers, of course, it's you know they've done tremendous work to get the league going, and hopefully we can grow it even bigger for the next season. And yeah, all the guys from Atomic Racing, Max, Christoph, for racing with me and supporting the team throughout, and also all the rest of the guys who will be actually debuting in the Free championship next season. So yeah, good things for the team ahead, and yeah, it's been great.
All right, there is your second place finisher tonight and championship runner up, Pavel Vasiliev. And I believe, Jake, you should be with Christoph now.
I should be, yes. And Christoph, that would be I would say a quiet race
User
for you
disconnected
this
from your
evening,
channel.
especially with the fact that it seemed like everyone just was a magnet and was repelled away.
Yeah, I had the hope for a few seconds when I managed to overtake Paul, but then I did a mistake. Like I gave him the spot to overtake me again, and then I quietly lost the pace. So not the best race, but strong race for us. We had to finish second and third. We figured out that Paul was the quickest, and for Pavel Championship we couldn't do anything. So this is the best position we could have today. So I'm happy. I'm happy for the end of the championship.
Well, happiness is very much obliged when you take the team's championship in the manner that you did. How much fun would you say would you have had knowing that the two tulip cars who you were racing against both got into trouble on the opening lap? Were you expecting maybe more of a stronger fight between those drivers coming back up into and challenging you?
Yeah, it was a big surprise that Dave and Danny didn't show up being fast at the beginning. So yeah, it was a bit surprising. But we knew that the main danger was Paul, because we knew he was going to be very fast. And yeah, I'm surprised Dave wasn't so fast today.
Yeah, the pace wasn't necessarily all there, but now you got to focus on the brand new season that'll be coming up in about 3 or 4 weeks. How is the focus going to be, knowing that you are now part of the team to beat?
Oh, the focus is to be a little bit stronger every year, gain more experience. We still have to finish the official championship. For us, it's not really finished. So we have 3 other weeks to work on, and then we'll take maybe a break. But yeah, the goal is always to get better and better. And maybe next season, Pavel, we have another chance to win the championship. I don't know. We'll see next year. I'm aiming to gain more experience, and let's see what happens, what kind of track we will have. I don't know. But we're aiming to stay where we are, at least.
Absolutely, as you should do. So there you have it, Christophe Bouzy in 3rd position overall. Frank, final thoughts as we bring an end to the season.
I mean, it's been an incredible season from start to finish, and the races that these guys have put on have been absolutely top flight. Can't wait to see what we can do next season.
Same here. You can catch it with us, of course, at ESBN, as well as the new Formula 3 series alluded to a little bit earlier through our interviews. That'll be coming in the off weeks, of course, which are traditionally here with the 3.5 series. Massive thanks, of course, has to go to everyone who's got it done behind the scenes, especially to all those at eFormula, from Danny and Bertwan and the entire team that's been working hard there. From Frank Marchesi and myself, Jake Sperry, it is on countback that the championship gets decided. You can't get much closer than deciding it by how many times you have won a race. But it is Paul Ilbrink's championship to have. It is Paul Ilbrink's to go through. But my goodness, what a great season we've had. And next season, if it's anything like this, and this was one of the most unpredictable championships we've had in a long time, you definitely want to tune in and watch again. We'll see you next time we're out here racing with ESPN.